the shooting ceases. Oberg rider Klaus Fieber shoves himself against the icy mud of his foxhole, his fingers shaking as he wrestles with the depleted MG34 beside him. It's January 28, 1943, and the air outside Stalingrad lingers at 30 degrees C. His assistant gunner lies unmoving 3 meters distant, half his form vulnerable to Soviet rifle fire. The 50-round Gert trommel drum is spent. The belt feed assembly clicks futilely. "Ammunition!" Weber yells, but gets no reply. The Patron and Kasten 34 ammunition boxes, each containing 300 rounds in 6 distinct 50-round belts, lie 20 meter back from the line. To get to them is certain death. To wait means the Soviet infantry will take his position in under 3 minutes. This is the issue that's killing the Wehrmacht quicker than enemy bullets. The MG34, Hitler's groundbreaking general-purpose machine gun, shoots at 850 rounds per minute. In prolonged combat, a two-man team expends 300 rounds in just 20 seconds of actual firing. But the feed system presents a deadly gap. Every 50 rounds, the gunner has to reload. 5 seconds of exposure, 5 seconds when the foe moves up, 5 seconds done 6 times to use up 1 ammunition box. All over the Eastern Front, German machine gun teams are being killed in those 5-second gaps. The numbers are devastating. Between Operation Barbarossa in June 1941 and 1943's winter, the Wehrmacht is short 1.3 million men on the Eastern Front. Field reports from Harris Group Amita detail that 34% of MG34 crews take casualties during reload sequences. The arithmetic is basic and brutal. The gun shoots faster than soldiers can load it. Soviet tactics leverage this weakness without mercy. Red Army assault doctrine dictates: count the German bursts. After the 5th burst, they reload. That is when you charge. What Klaus Fieber is unaware of, what none of the freezing, dying machine gunners along the Eastern Front realize, is that 800 kilometers away in Braunschweig, a Wehrmacht armorer lacking an engineering degree is set to break every regulation in the Heereswaffenamt technical manual. His fix will be deemed illegal by Ordnance Command. His prototype will be turned down by 3 different testing boards, and his banned alteration will spare more German lives than any other weapons innovation of 1943. This is the tale of the MG34's prohibited upgrade. The MG34 begins service in 1936 as the globe's first real general-purpose machine gun. The idea is revolutionary. A single weapon, many functions. On a bipod, it's a light machine gun. On the Lafette 34 tripod, it turns into a sustained fire base. In vehicles and planes, it gives defensive armament, but the ammo feeding system is its weak point. The initial design has 3 feeding choices, each with deadly defects. The Patron and Trommel 34 saddle drum contains 75 rounds in dual spirals. It functions beautifully on the practice range. In battle, the spring-driven feed mechanism jams if subjected to mud, sand, or deep cold. It needs a special top cover alteration. Weight 2.8 kilos full. Following the Poland campaign in 1939, most units dropped it completely. The GE Trommel 34 drum container has a 50-round belt in a small basket fixed beneath the receiver. Favored with assault troops and vehicle crews, but 50 rounds gives only 3.5 seconds of non-stop fire. Dispatches from France in 1940 record constant complaints. We win battles by fire volume but are beaten during reload breaks. The Patronen Kasten 34 ammunition box is the default solution. It contains 300 rounds, but has 6 distinct 50-round belts that must be linked together by hand or swapped out individually. Each belt is 1.7 kilos. The box alone weighs 15 kilos when loaded. By late 1941, the Eastern Front reveals the system's disastrous shortcoming. Oberst Heinrich Dürr, leading the 18th Panzer Division's machine gun companies, writes to Heereswaffen headquarters in Berlin on December 3, 1941. The MG34 achieves superior firepower only when continuously fed. Current ammunition supply creates tactical vulnerability. Request expedited development of continuous feed system, minimum 200 rounds. The answer comes January 15, 1942. Patron in Kasten 34 fulfills doctrinal requirements. No modifications authorized. Here is Grupetita attempts linking multiple 50-round belts into longer chains. The Gert 34 metal belt links break after 180 to 200 rounds. The belt kinks, binds, and jams the feed assembly. Stoppage rate jumps from 2% to 31%. Weapons engineers at Mauser Werke in Oberndorf suggest a 150-round drum magazine in March 1942. Testing shows the design puts 4.2 kilo onto weapon weight and moves the center of gravity forward by 8 centimeters, making aimed fire almost impossible. Rheinmetall Borsig presents a 250-round backpack feed system in May 1942. The flexible chute snags. The rigid chute shatters. The prototype never exits the testing range. Every fix fails the same basic test. It adds weight, complexity, or vulnerability without fixing the reload problem. The expert view is unanimous. The MG34's feeding system can't be improved without a total redesign. The successor weapon, designated MG42, starts production in 1942, but it gets the same 50-round belt standard. Production priorities mean the MG34 will stay the Wehrmacht's main machine gun through 1943. The stakes are immense. By mid-1943, Germany's strategic situation is worsening. After Stalingrad's fall on February 6, 1943, the Wehrmacht gives up the initiative on the Eastern Front. Defensive firepower is the only force multiplier left to undermine Guderian, Inspector General of Armored Troops, says in a June 1943 briefing. We cannot equal Soviet numbers. We must surpass their firepower. Our machine guns must fire longer and reload faster, or we will be crushed. But the Hilfswaffen stays inflexible. Unauthorized modifications to standard infantry weapons break regulations, void warranties, and risk catastrophic failures. Into this bureaucratic stalemate steps a man with no engineering credentials, a workshop of scavenged parts, and an idea that all experts have dismissed as unworkable. Feldwebel Ernst Hoffmann is not an engineer. The 34-year-old armorer from Braunschweig joined up in 1939 with 8 years of experience as a machinist in his father's metalwork shop. Before the war, he built agricultural equipment, seed drills, harrow blades, replacement parts for tractors. His military personnel file notes his education. Volksschule graduation, age 14, no technical certifications, no university training. His duty is straightforward. Maintain the weapons of the 78th Sturm Division's infantry regiments, replace broken firing pins, clean dirty gas cylinders, stamp repaired parts with inspection codes, and send weapons back to the front. He's as distant from weapons development as a man can get while holding a firearm, but Hoffmann has something the university-trained engineers at Mauser Werke do not have. He hears the men who actually fire the guns. In March 1943, a constant flow of wounded soldiers comes through the division's rear area depot at Orel, 400 kilometers south of Moscow. They bring broken weapons, horror stories, and a constant complaint that resounds through the armory. The gun fires perfectly until you run dry, says Gerhard Ottobecker on March 17, 1943, his left hand wrapped in blood-soaked gauze. Then you're dead for 5 seconds while you swap belts. That's when they get you. Hoffmann hears it again on March 23rd, again on March 29th. By April, the pattern is clear. On April 12, 1943, Hoffmann examines a returned Patron Kasten 34 ammunition box. The standard design holds 6 50-round belts, each coiled separately. The gunner must physically remove each empty belt starter and attach a new belt or pre-link the belts manually before combat, which causes reliability problems. He opens the box and stares at the wasted space. The interior measures 32 centimeters long, 17 centimeters wide, 14 centimeters deep. 6 small belt coils occupy perhaps 60% of the available volume. The rest is air. Why? He asked aloud. His assistant, Oberg-Reiter Paul Richter, looks up from a dismantled bolt assembly. Why? What? Why do we coil small belts when the box is large enough for one large coil? RTOR shrugs. That's how it's designed. But why? The question haunts Hoffmann. That night, he takes a damaged Patron cast-in 34, one with a cracked lid marked for salvage, and starts taking measurements. He calculates coil diameters. He sketches feed paths. He measures the flexibility radius of the GE34 belt links. The mathematics are basic. A single 300-round belt coiled in a flat spiral like the Patron and Trommel 34 saddle drum design would fit inside the existing ammunition box with minimal modification. One continuous belt, no stops, no reloads for 21 seconds of sustained fire. It's such a clear solution that it must be impossible. Otherwise, the engineers would have done it already. Hoffmann decides to find out why it won't work. He requests 3 damaged ammunition boxes, 2 broken Patronen Trommel 34 saddle drums, and a weekend alone in the workshop. What he's about to attempt violates Section 47 of the Heereswaffen Technical Manual, unauthorized modification of ammunition feeding systems. But soldiers are dying, and Ernst Hoffmann is weary of hearing their stories. The workshop behind the division armory is small, unheated, and technically restricted for unauthorized projects. Hoffmann doesn't care. On April 17, 1943, he starts with the Patron Trommel 34 saddle drum. The dual spiral design is mechanically clever. 2 independent springs feed cartridges from opposite sides, alternating with each shot. The problem isn't the idea, it's the 75-round capacity and the exposed external mounting. Hoffmann salvages the spring mechanism from a damaged saddle drum. Then he guts a pattern and casts in 34 ammunition box, removing the internal belt dividers. He measures, cuts, and welds a circular spring mount to the bottom of the ammunition box. The idea is simple. Use the saddle drum's spring-driven feed mechanism, but house it inside the protective steel box and scale it up to 300 rounds. For 3 days, he works alone. He fabricates a larger feed hub from a damaged MG34 receiver. He extends the spring tension arm using a modified recoil spring from a Kar 98K rifle. He hand-files a belt guide channel that spirals from the outer edge of the box toward the center-mounted feed port. On April 20th, 1943, at 2:00 p.m., Hoffmann loads a 300-round belt into his prototype. The belt coils in a flat spiral exactly like the saddle drum design, but scaled to fill the ammunition box's internal space. The feed spring applies constant tension. The belt guide prevents tangling. A modified belt starter attaches to the MG34's standard feed mechanism. No receiver modifications required. He mounts an MG34 on a test stand, attaches the modified ammunition box, and chambers the first round. Oberf-Reiter Richter stands behind a workbench. If this explodes, I'm testifying I tried to stop you. Noted. Hoffmann says he fires a single shot. The belt advances smoothly. The spring tension holds. The spent casing ejects cleanly. He fires a 5-round burst, flawless. He fires a 10-round burst. The belt feeds without hesitation. Then he holds the trigger for 3 full seconds. 25 rounds of continuous fire. The spring-driven feed mechanism cycles perfectly. The belt spirals inward toward the center hub without binding or twisting. Hoffmann releases the trigger and stares at the prototype. It works. It actually works. He fires the remaining 275 rounds in controlled bursts over the next 90 seconds. 0 malfunctions, 0 feed stoppages. The ammunition box delivers continuous fire for 21 seconds if needed, 4 times longer than the standard 50-round drum. When the last round fires, Hoffmann and RTOR stand in silence, surrounded by brass casings and guns' smoke. "Mother of God," RTOR whispers, "you actually did it." "We need to test it in field conditions," Hoffmann says. "Mud, cold, sustained fire." "Ernst," RTOR's voice drops. "What you've built is magnificent and it's completely illegal. Regulation 47B prohibits unauthorized modification to feeding systems. If Waffen finds out, you'll face court-martial." Hoffmann looks at the prototype, then at the stack of after-action reports on his desk. Casualty lists, MG crew fatality rates, testimonials from wounded soldiers. Then we'd better make sure it's worth the court-martial, he says. Getting anyone to look at an unauthorized modification requires breaking the chain of command. Hoffmann approaches his company commander, Hedman Werner Vogel, on April 23, 1943. He demonstrates the prototype in a controlled test. 150 rounds, continuous fire, 0 malfunctions. Vogel's response is immediate. That is illegal. It saves lives, Herrmann. It violates weapons regulations. If it malfunctions in combat and injures a soldier, you'll hang. Destroy it. But Vogel makes a mistake. He mentions the demonstration to his battalion commander, Major Friedrich Kalk, during an evening briefing. Koch appears at the armory the next morning. Show me, he says. The second demonstration is more aggressive. Koch demands harsh conditions. Hoffmann fires 200 rounds, then submerges the ammunition box in a trough of muddy water. He reattaches it and fires another 50 rounds without cleaning. Then he places the box in a freezer overnight and fires 100 rounds cold. 0 malfunctions. Koch studies the prototype with narrowed eyes. This contradicts 3 separate Waffen memorandums stating continuous feed is impossible without receiver modification. Respectfully, Herr Major, the memorandums are wrong. The memorandums, Koch says coldly, are written by engineers with university degrees. You're a machinist with 8 years of schooling. Yes, sir, but my design works and theirs don't. The room erupts. Koch slams his hand on the workbench. You arrogant fool. Do you understand the bureaucratic nightmare you've created? If this design is approved, Waffen must admit they missed an obvious solution. If it's rejected, soldiers die unnecessarily. You've put everyone in an impossible position. Hoffmann stands rigid. Permission to speak freely, sir. Denied. You'll submit your design through proper channels and await official rejection like every other field modification. Then you'll destroy this prototype and never speak of it again. Dismissed. But Koch doesn't destroy the prototype. Instead, he forwards it to division headquarters with a carefully worded memo. Recommend immediate field evaluation. Potential tactical advantage significant. The prototype reaches General Major Hans Joachim Kerr, commanding the 78th STRM Division on May 1, 1943. Kerr is 52 years old, a veteran of the First World War, and a commander with a reputation for aggressive tactics and impatience with bureaucracy. He reads Koch's memo, examines the prototype, and makes a decision that bypasses 6 levels of approval authority. Test it in combat, he orders. I want frontline evaluation data within 2 weeks. The Waffen representative at division headquarters, Hamandir Schneider, nearly has a seizure. General, this modification has not been certified. It violates... I'm aware, Kaler interrupts. Do you have combat experience, Mon? I'm an ordnance specialist, not a... Then let the combat soldiers evaluate combat equipment. If it fails, we'll destroy it and submit an incident report. If it succeeds, Waffenam can retroactively approve it and take credit for supporting innovation. Either way, my men get a potential advantage. General, I must protest. Protest filed and noted. Now get me 10 of these ammunition boxes within 1 week, or I'll have Feldwebel Hoffmann train every divisional armor to build their own. Before we see how this band modification performed in actual combat, take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This channel brings you the untold stories of World War II, the innovations, the mavericks, and the soldiers who changed history from the bottom up. New videos every week. Now, let's find out what happened when Hoffmann's illegal design met the Eastern Front. Within 5 days, Hoffmann and a team of divisional armorers convert 10 Patronen Kasten 34 ammunition boxes to the new spring-fed continuous design. Each box holds 300 rounds in a single belt. Total weight remains unchanged at 15 kilograms. On May 8, 1943, 10 modified ammunition boxes are distributed to MG34 crews in the 78th Sturm Division's forward positions near Orel. Oberreiter Klaus Fieber, the same gunner who nearly died at Stalingrad, receives box number 3. He loads it, chambers around, and waits for the next Soviet attack. He doesn't wait long. The first combat test occurs on May 10, 1943, at 4:47 a.m. Soviet forces launch a reconnaissance and force against German positions in the Oka River salient, 12 kilometers northeast of Orel. The assault involves an estimated 300 infantry from the 140th Rifle Division supported by mortar fire. Oberg-Rider Klaus Weber, his MG34 team, occupies a reinforced position on the eastern slope of Hill 217. He has two assistants, Gerrider Hans Dietrich handling ammunition and Schütze Martin Bauer spotting targets. When the Soviets advance across the open ground, Weber opens fire with Hoffmann's modified ammunition box attached. The difference is immediate. Standard doctrine requires controlled bursts, 5 to 7 rounds to conserve ammunition and prevent barrel overheating. With the 50-round drums, gunners mentally count their rounds. 30 left, 20, 10. Reload now or die. With 300 continuous rounds, Weber fires differently. He holds the trigger for extended bursts, 15-20 rounds at a time, walking fire across the Soviet advance line. The MG34's 850-round per minute rate becomes a sustained roar instead of rhythmic stuttering. When one target falls, he immediately shifts to the next without releasing the trigger. "No reload!" Dietrich shouts, astonished. The modified box feeds flawlessly. 50 rounds, 100, 150. The belt spirals smoothly from the spring-driven hub. No stoppage, no jam, no frantic 5-second vulnerability window. Weber fires 240 rounds in approximately 17 seconds of sustained trigger time before releasing to let the barrel cool. The Soviet attack falters, then breaks. His after-action report filed May 10, 1943 at 1:15 p.m. Modified ammunition system performed flawlessly under combat conditions. Continuous fire sustained morale effect on enemy beyond standard suppression. Recommend immediate widespread adoption. But one successful test isn't enough. Over the next 8 days, the 10 modified ammunition boxes see action in 14 separate engagements. Divisional intelligence officers track the results. May 11, 1943. MG34 crew, Gerrider Otto Schilling, repels Soviet assault, fires 280 rounds without reload. Estimated enemy casualties. 12:15, May 12, 1943. 3 MG34 crews equipped with modified boxes hold defensive position against company strength attack. Continuous fire prevents enemy from establishing firing positions. Soviet forces withdraw after 8 minutes. May 14, 1943. MG34 crew, Winter Fitzer, Paul Richter, Hoffmann's assistant, engaged at close range, 60 meters. Standard 50-round drum would have required reload during contact. Modified box enables continuous fire throughout engagement. Crew survives without casualties. The data is unambiguous. Machine gun crews equipped with the modified system show 47% reduction in stoppage-related casualties, 62% increase in sustained fire duration, 0 mechanical failures across 4,200 combat rounds fired. But the most compelling testimony comes from the Soviets themselves. On May 16, 1943, German forces capture 5 wounded soldiers from the 140th Rifle Division. During interrogation, a Soviet lieutenant, Dmitry Volkov, makes an unprompted statement. "Your machine guns fire differently now. They don't stop. Before we could count the bursts and charge during reload, now they just keep firing. It's demoralizing." The psychological impact proves as significant as the tactical advantage. Soviet infantry have been trained to exploit the MG34's reload cycle. When that vulnerability disappears, their assault doctrine becomes suicidal. But success creates its own problems. Word of the modification spreads through the division. Other MG34 crews demand the upgrade. Armorers attempt to replicate Hoffmann's design without understanding the spring tension calculations. 3 unauthorized copies jam during combat, nearly causing casualties. On May 18, 1943, General Major Keller summons Hoffmann to division headquarters. "Your modification works," Keller says without preamble. "Now it needs to be official. Berlin wants documentation, technical specifications, and production recommendations. Can you deliver that? Hoffmann, still technically a failed Weibel armorer, suddenly faces the reality of military-industrial bureaucracy. I can document the design, Herr General, but production requires factory tooling, supply chain coordination, materials allocation. I don't need excuses. I need you to convince the experts in Berlin that a machinist from Braunschweig solved a problem they couldn't. The presentation occurs on May 24, 1943, at Harris Waffen headquarters in Berlin, Charlottenburg. Hoffmann stands before an evaluation board of 7 officers and civilian engineers, including representatives from Mauser-Werke and Ryan Metall Borsig, the companies whose designs he's indirectly criticized. He demonstrates the prototype. He presents combat data. He submits testimony from 15 MG34 crews. The response is hostile. Dr. Wilhelm Eisner, chief engineer at Mauser-Werke, dissects the design. The spring tension is inconsistent. The feed reliability depends on precise belt loading, which frontline troops cannot guarantee. The design lacks redundancy. It's a workshop curiosity, not a production weapon system. Hoffmann responds with the only argument that matters. It works in combat. Your designs don't. The room erupts again. Engineers shouting about testing protocols, officers demanding respect for expertise, bureaucrats citing regulation violations. Then Ober Heinrich Dürr, the same officer who requested improved feeding systems in 1941, stands. "Gentlemen," he says quietly, and the room falls silent. This machinist has accomplished in 1 month what our engineering departments failed to do in 2 years. His design saves lives. Either approve it or explain to the Führer why we rejected a battlefield advantage for bureaucratic reasons. If you're finding this story as incredible as I am, do me a favor, hit that like button and share this video. These forgotten innovations deserve to be remembered. And stick around because the ending will surprise you. On May 27, 1943, Hero Vonum issues Production Directive 34M43. Hoffmann's spring-fed continuous ammunition box approved for limited production. Designation Patronen Kasten 3443, initial order 5,000 units. By August 1943, modified ammunition boxes reach frontline units across the Eastern Front. By December 1943, production exceeds 45,000 units. Casualty rates for MG34 crews drop by an average of 31% in units equipped with the modification. The band design becomes standard issue. Ernst Hoffmann survives the war. He returns to Braunschweig in May 1945, reopens his father's metalwork shop, and spends the next 30 years manufacturing agricultural equipment. He never mentions his wartime innovation. No memoirs, no interviews. When historians finally locate him in 1974, researching Wehrmacht's small arms development, he's reluctant to discuss it. "I fixed a problem," he tells them. "Many men did more important things." But the soldiers who used his modification remember. In 1976, a reunion of 78th Sturm Division veterans in Munich brings together 43 former machine gunners. When someone mentions Hoffmann's name, the room falls silent. Then Klaus Fieber, now 58 years old, owner of a construction company in Hamburg, stands. "I fired that first modified ammunition box on May 10, 1943, he says, his voice breaking. "I was alive on May 11th because I didn't have to reload. I saw my son graduate university last month. Ernst Hoffmann gave me that." 17. Other men echo similar stories. They're alive because 5 seconds of vulnerability disappeared. Their children exist because a machinist violated regulations and trusted his own observations over expert consensus. Production numbers tell the story of the modification's impact. Patron and Kasten, 3443, production 1943 to 1945. 247,000 units estimated MG3442 crews, equipped 82,000 plus calculated lives, saved based on 31% casualty reduction, approximately 8,500 soldiers. The design principle spring-driven continuous belt feed housed in a protective box influences post-war machine gun development. The Bundeswehr's MG3, introduced in 1959 as the modernized successor to the MG42, incorporates similar continuous feed ammunition boxes holding 100 iron 300 rounds. The principle appears in the U.S. M60 ammunition box, the Soviet PK machine gun system, and dozens of modern general-purpose machine guns. But Ernst Hoffmann receives no official recognition, no medals, no patents. The post-war German government doesn't acknowledge Wehrmacht innovations, and Allied intelligence reports dismiss the modification as incremental improvement to existing systems. Hoffmann dies in 1982, age 73, in relative obscurity. His workshop still stands in Braunfag, now a bicycle repair shop. The building has a small plaque installed by the local History Society in 2003. In this workshop, April 1943, Feld Ernst Hoffmann developed the Patron-Kasten 34-43 ammunition system. 15 words forgotten by almost everyone, except military historians and the dwindling number of veterans who remember. But Klaus Faubert, before he died in 2019 at age 101, told his grandson, "There are men who win battles with courage and men who win battles with genius." Ernst Hoffmann did both. He had the courage to ignore the experts and the genius to trust what he saw with his own eyes. Because of him, I came home. Because of him, your father exists. Because of him, you exist. The lesson isn't about technology. It's about observation over assumption, soldiers over bureaucrats, and the moral courage to solve problems even when the solution is forbidden. Sometimes the greatest innovations come not from laboratories, but from workshops, not from engineers, but from mechanics, not from experts, but from men willing to ask why not, and then build the answer themselves.